Hey Akanksha, hi.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
So, I think let's just get on with. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Liminal for our live AMA on self custody need of the hour. I'm Akanksha Sharma, manager in PR at Liminal. And today we have gathered here to talk about self custody, which has undeniably become an increasingly talked about topic amongst the crypto community users as well as the investors due to the rising number of incidents that has taken place in the industry in the past couple of months. It is said that with self custody, users can store their own private keys to control their own funds. And while we are at it, let's welcome our amazing panel of experts here to answer any and all of your questions about today's topic. I'll start with introducing the panel. First off, I'd like to welcome Mahin Gupta, founder of digital wallet infrastructure platform Liminal. Mahin has been in the crypto industry for close to a decade and was amongst the founding members of the leading crypto exchange Zepe. Joining him, we have Dhruvil Shah, SVP Technology at Liminal. He's a technology veteran with over 8 years of experience in the industry. Hi, Mahin and Dhruvil. Thank you for being here today.
Hi,
Hey Akanksha.
Kanksha.
Excited and looking forward to the space.
So are we. And like we have talked about this internally, I think couple of times how self custody has become a hot topic, and not just a hot topic but actually the a very well required need for the industry. And I'll just start off with the basic question, which is, by the way, the intent behind this AMA. So I would like to ask you, why has self custody become the need of the hour?
I'll I'll take this. So the first thing is that the whole premise of cryptocurrencies or crypto assets is to when Satoshi Nakamoto launched and released the Bitcoin white paper, the whole idea was to build a peer-to-peer digital assets infrastructure where you remove the need of intermediaries to transfer values. And one of the first thing when you are saying peer-to-peer digital asset transfer is that each peer controls their own on coins or the assets or the values. Now, if we starting from 2008 when the white paper was launched, back in 2022, the crypto ecosystem is now around about right now 1 trillion, but at the start of the year it was around about $2 trillion. Okay, and what we have seen here in the year of 2022 is that there are high profile centralized ecosystem in this system failing, such as 3 Euro Capital, Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager, and of course the very recent one, FTX. Now, FTX was one of the largest exchange and the player in the industry. We will not go into the nitty gritties of how it failed, what went wrong, and so on, because that's not the topic here. But one of the fundamental thing that happened wrong here is people have started trusting exchanges or centralized custodians more than they should ideally, and which is not the premise of crypto assets. So according to me, if you ask me, I have spent 10 plus years in this ecosystem now. It comes to very simple motto, which was initially coined by this Andreas Antonopoulos: "Not your keys, not your coins." So in crypto assets, if you do not control your keys to the assets, then these are basically not your coins. They are just like a IOU that is displaying on a web interface from the exchange or something. So it is very important, if you believe in the promise of blockchain, you believe in the promise of crypto assets, then the first fundamental thing that you should look into is holding your own coins, and self custody is one way to do it.
Right. Because I think whenever a newbie enters into the market and starts with the trading process, the first thing they do is get on an exchange. But they are also the ones who stores most of their assets on the exchange, just because they feel it's very easy and you don't have to get them extracted and go for the tax procedures and all those things when you get trade your assets. So I think this is the basic thing. That is why I think there's this need for self custody. So, getting on to this, like, what are the benefits that self custody has to offer?
So, to add to the benefits, I think the major benefit that you get for with self custody is, of course, control, right?
Right.
If you're having your custody, then you have complete control over your funds, and it basically eliminates the need to trust any third party custodian. That is basically the ethos of cryptocurrency, and what's like what Mahin said. That is what Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned. It also gives you more security. If you're having a self custody setup, basically you have the flexibility to have your own security structure. You don't have to depend on the third party custodian that they will decide on which security spectrum you have to sit at. Basically, if you want to have a two factor, if you want to have a multi sig wallet, if you want to have your keys parted into different geolocations, these are all of these things are possible only if you are there with your self custody. So basically, you get to decide on which spectrum of the security you want to be at. Of course, it can also add in your privacy. So like, yeah, now if you are there on some third party custodian, like they know the Binance or Coinbase, they'll ask you to do KYC. They'll know what all cryptos that you have. They basically have information about what you're holding.
So while you just talked about two-factor authentication and multi-sig, can you please elaborate on that? Because that is, I think, one of the key features that actually it should attract more attention towards self-custody.
Right. So self custody is basically it's a journey. So I won't ask people who are just starting up to like put all of their funds and self custody at the start. Like you said, if people are joining in, they're just entering the crypto ecosystem. It is fine that they start with a custody product. They start researching what self custody is, what are seed phrases, how to secure your wallets, and you start with $100 the money that you are okay uh, to like self custody, because when you're doing self custody, basically now you are responsible for securing it. So if you are not aware how to secure those funds, that is basically like even like worse than getting it like in a custody setup, right? So you need to like educate yourself on how to do this self custody. There are various phases there. First, you can have just a seed phrase. You can have something like a MetaMask. Once you like get more accustomed to it, you can get a Trezor or a Ledger. So these are hardware devices. This basically act as a fault tolerant in case you lose your seed phrase, or or you don't want to get the exposure of software keys. You don't want to like leak your private keys. This is one of the setup that you can opt for. Of course, there are higher setups where you can plug in a multi-sig way, where you can have like multiple keys associated with your wallet. So you have multiple approvals for a transaction to go through. These are also called like a fault tolerant wallets in terms of tech. So like even in case something happens, something bad happens, even then you're able to like recover those wallet. Even if one of your keys get hacked or one of your keys get lost, you don't lose complete control of your wallets. All your funds are lost.
Sure. So, since you are the expert in the technology field, I would say, like, from the technological standpoint, how important is the tech infrastructure to ensure self custody measures?
So I would say the tech infrastructure is more important in self custody than if you're even using custody, because if you're using custody, then they have a lot of oversight. There are people, there are organizations that are managing these funds. Of course, if they don't have bad intent, of course there are certain checks in place, or something when something does go wrong, then there are a lot of people watching over it. But if you're doing in a self custody kind of way, you still need to trust the software that you're running. Like, not everyone is a developer, and not everyone knows how to like create their own
Right.
wallets and generate their own keys. So the tech infrastructure that you are running will be very important, because this is the same infrastructure that would be like creating your keys, storing your keys, signing transaction. So like we did see this with the Solana hack that happened recently, where even if it was self custody wallet, the private keys were leaked and the funds were lost. We have seen this previously even for Bitcoin and Ether based wallets, where the private key generation was not done properly, and that led to uh, like leakage of your private keys, and in turn, like, people lost their money. So the tech infrastructure is very, very important, and generally it has to be done in an generally people do it in open source way. So there's a lot. So that is how you bring in oversight on what software you're running.
Since you have talked about this, key leakage, the very first thing that comes to my mind is the security measures. So, Mahin, what according to you are the security measures that are imperative while choosing self custody?
Of course. But before that, I just want to add on something what Dhruvil said. So, yes, I agree. If you are entering into the crypto ecosystem, you are new, you don't understand it. It is absolutely okay to kind of, for a very small amounts, you can trust centralized exchanges or centralized custodians. And if you are trading, let's say, if you want to trade, then at that time you of course need those funds there. But having said that, we all need to understand that security is a spectrum, knowledge is a spectrum. At the same time, your exposure to the security risk and custodian risk should also increase as your exposure or allocation of investment increases. So you cannot have the same security spectrum or infrastructure what you have for 100 rupees, that is not same for 10,000 rupees, and that is not same for 1 crore rupees.
Right.
Think on those
Everybody has
lines.
their own risk appetite, and they have to choose this as per their risk appetite.
Yes, so it's a very simple metaphor is that if you have, let's say, 1,000 rupees, you are absolutely okay to store it in your pocket, and you are okay to roam around anywhere with 1,000 rupees. You can lose your pocket wallet, and it's fine. If you have 1 lakh rupees, you want to store it like a little bit more securely. So you want to take this time and effort to understand how to store this 1 lakh rupees securely. Okay, but let's say if you have 1 crore rupees, then you really, really want to learn how to make sure that this money is secured or stored safely. Then it is also uh, accessible in case if, let's say, you are not available. So again, three principles of any big asset: availability, redundancy, and security. Your assets has to be secure, the access has to be redundant, and it should be available for transactions. So people will have to understand this, that when you are entering into a crypto, then it might take some time for you to understand, and there is a steep learning curve. But if you are believing into the crypto ecosystem and the promise of blockchain and promise of crypto, then you want to invest that time and go through that learning curve to make sure that you store your assets with yourself. With regards to security measure, again, same thing applies here. You cannot have the same security fundamentals for 100 rupees and 1 crore rupees. So
Right.
similar thing, if you are just trying it out, if you are just hobbyist, then there is no point of making it very, very complicated. As Dhruval suggested, you can use, even if you are on a self custody, you can use something like on Ethereum and EVM infrastructure. You can use something like MetaMask. On Bitcoin, you can use something else, and so on. But as the amount or investment amount or the total allocation increases, at that time it is very, very important to adhere to best security practice. One of the fundamental thing is into crypto ecosystem is how you store your private keys, and
Right.
the fundamental thing is if you are going to do self custody, then managing the private keys properly is very very important. So simple thumb rules: do not make digital copies of your private keys. If you make, so you need to understand this fundamental concept of attack surface. Okay, so if you are, let's say, walking in Ahmedabad road, then a car on that particular road can hit you. Okay, so your attack surface is physical restraint into that particular road, correct? But if you are on a web and your Gmail account or something is there, then the attack surface is the whole cloud, whole world, correct?
Yeah.
So same
ab-
thing. If you have your private keys or seeds stored physically or made a copy physically, then your attack surface becomes physical. Okay. But if it is a digital copy, then your attack surface becomes digital, which is basically the whole world. Or and if it is connected on internet devices, then it is whole world. So the first fundamental is ideally you should store it physically, either using hardware devices such as Ledger or Trezor, or even if you can, if you are going to build, let's say for an example, paper wallet or something. These are like, again, depending on your time you have spent into the crypto ecosystem, it might take some time to understand these words or these terms. In fact, it should be a good idea where Dhruvil might want to explain three setups. Let's say if I'm going to ask you that, if I, let's say for an example, Dhruvil, just let's say 10,000 rupees, which is a normal amount, and I'm absolutely okay with it, and I want to self custody it. So how I should approach it? Then I have, let's say for an example, 10 lakh. It's a significant amount for me, and how do I go about it? And if, let's say, I have a 1 CR, and I'm an enterprise or something, then how I go about it? Because enterprises are not only about security risk, but there are also corporate best practices which is required. There are internal employee collusion you want to look at, some of the personnel risks you want to look at. So if we want to, let's say, understand self custodial risk, then let's try to personal trivial amount, personal significant amount, and then at an enterprise level or at a corporate level, if I want to store my own assets, and how I go about it.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
So, yeah, please, Rohit, please pitch in.
Yeah, so to start with, like the smaller amounts, so of course it is totally fine to have a single sig or a software-based wallets at this point. I would still suggest instead of using a browser-based wallet, you should use something like a mobile-based wallet. So the modern mobile phones have something called secure enclave or secure chip. Using that, your passphrase or your seed phrase or your private key is basically stored inside. So even if you're not investing in a hardware device that might cost you around $200, $300, you can still use your existing mobile devices to store your private keys, even at a smaller scale. If you're talking about a bit at a higher level, so if you're talking about a moderate amount of sum, I would recommend to invest in a hardware-based wallet. So generally, there are two choices. You can have Trezor or you can have a Ledger wallet. But do try to educate yourself on how to use these devices. There have been phishing scams. There have been scams where people are asked to write their recovery phase or mnemonic phase in a browser, telling that we are operators of this hardware devices to take the funds out. So do educate yourself on how to use these devices. There are a lot of tutorials available online, a lot of documentation available on how to use these wallets. On top of that, I would recommend that you should have a passphrase associated with it. So even in case your seed phrase is compromised, there's still an additional layer of security called a passphrase that you can enable with your Trezor or Ledger wallets. So this is a word that is above and beyond your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, which you can add. And do save your mnemonic or a private key physically somewhere. So, and do share it with your loved ones or somewhere that if in case you don't, if something happens to you and your family members can go and recover it. If you're telling about amount at a very high level or organization type of place, we still have to use this hardware based devices, but we should use multiple of these devices, because if you just have one device, that is basically you are dependent on this one and you have a single point of failure. Your trezor might die. We have seen people storing your trezor and the recovery phases like together, and if something happens to that safe, like both of them are gone at the same time. So
Right.
people should have like multiple devices to keep it redundant, and not only just have multiple devices, but these devices should also be kept in different locations, right? So the worst case looks like we onboard a lot of people. So my worst generally fear is we help them to set up these multiple devices. My worst fear is like all of the devices go into the same drawer, right? Even if you have this multiple devices, they should be kept in like multiple geolocations, and multiple different people should have access to those devices. On top of that, if you are like really enterprise grade, there are a lot of services, of course, like Liminal is one of them, that would help you with your self custody, and that would help you to enforce policies to make sure that you are onboarded correctly, your recovery phases and your everything is backed up properly. That someone that would provide you with SOPs on how to create the seeds, how to back up those seeds, how to make sure that your wallet, what would happen in case like one of your keys compromised. All of these SOPs are provided. And so basically, they are basically some companies like Limna, they basically act as a helping hand to
Right.
help you on this journey of self custody. The majority of these private keys are still with the customers. So, like this companies cannot do anything on their own. The user still has access to the majority of the private keys and can still recover those funds outside this third part, the custodians.
Right.
I just want to add one small thing here. Like for an example, if we are taking an example of Trezor or Ledger hardware devices or something, so you need to just remember these three simple steps. Very, very simple. And these are like thumb rules. You can go ahead. If you are, let's say, for an example, a Trezor or Ledger costs you around about $100 or $150. So, according to me, and I might be wrong here, but if you are storing anything above $1,000, then it's a very, very good investment to buy something like Ledger or Trezor. Okay. Now, the simple thumb rules are: you create your seed phrase copy or mnemonic words in a paper only. Okay, you never make a digital copy of it. It also means that you never enter your mnemonics or seed phrase into any digital device except Ledger and Trezor. So if you are supposed to enter it, you are entering it into only Ledger and Trezor. You are never entering it to any of the online devices. Second, you have this seed phrase. Now this is basically your money or keys to the private keys. You go to Amazon and find these temper evident bags. These are like courier bags, which you are able to kind of buy very cheaply. You write this seed phrase into a paper, put it into one another A4 page so that no one can see it. Seal it into a temper evident bag, create couple of copies if you want, and just put it into either a bank locker or a safe or something, and tell it to your loved ones. Then they have access to it. This is the second thing. And third thing, as Dhruil mentioned, never put your Trezor ledgers and the seed phrases and everything together. Okay, remember this way: your Trezor or ledger, this is your active key, and the mnemonic that you are writing is your backup key. Backup key should never go along with your active key. Backup key should always be offline and secured physically. Now, the advantages of this Trezor and Ledger is that because they have something known as HSM chip inside it, hardware security module, the private keys are part of it. Even if you will kind of connect it into even infected computer, your private keys will not leak. You are still susceptible to phishing attacks and other attacks. On that, you will have to just use the simple fundamentals, computer security fundamentals, best practices to save yourself from phishing and something. So I still believe that even if you are storing something like $1,000, Trezor and Ledger are a good investment. There are other hardware wallets as well. We are not affiliated with Trezor and Ledger. In general, I have used personally both of them, and they are good.
Right. So while you have already rightly said that these measures, security measures, are as per your own, it's like on the spectrum. It's as per your own risk appetite and how much you want to spare, like for custody. So, but for general mass consumption and knowledge, like what are some of the most popular self custody solutions that are available there in the market?
So I'll take this up. The first thing is that if you have a sizable amount, then you should always use the white glove premium self custody solutions such as Liminal, because sometimes even if you understand a particular things about, let's say, Trezor or Ledger and storing your mnemonic or something, sometimes you might expose, and you if you try to set up yourself a multisig or something, you might create a scheme or structure which you are not aware that you are actually exposing yourself to a lot of security risk. On top of that, white glove uh, with best security practices, self-custody solutions such as Liminal, they allows you to set up a lot of corporate security policies, the governance policies like whitelisting, spending limits, transaction limits. On top of that, there are lots of other security premises that we take care. So if you have a sizable amount, you go for self custody solutions like Liminal. There are other, like for an example, if you want to do it yourself, then in case of Bitcoin, there is Electrum, there is a Spectra wallet. In case of Ethereum, there is a Gnosis Safe wallet, and other there are lots of single sig wallet as well, like Trust wallet and so on. The problem with if you have a sizable amount and you want to do this multiple signature wallets or multi-sig wallets is that there is no single solution which allows you to store both Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, and other assets. At that time, you will have to go with a white glove premium solutions like Liminal. Having said that, if you want to go for a single sig, then and if you can purchase hardware wallets, then you have options like Trezor, Ledger, SafePal. If you are storing only Bitcoin, then there are Bitcoin only options such as Cold Card and so on. If you want to store on your mobile, then there is a Coinbase wallet, there is a Trust wallet, and there are other specific solutions regarding to a particular chain economics and so on. There are new age MPC based wallets, and I can see one comment where a user Sumit M has raised a question on MPC thresholds. So yes, your question is if our threshold of factors is two, then if two or more your factors are either held or accessible by external parties, that means that others can access your key without you, making the first statement of self custody false. You are right. If your MPC shards are two shards and both shards are with the other parties, or if they have access to these shards, then yes, you are right. This is not a self custody. This is basically a custodial solution. In general, while this will be a little bit more technical, but MPC solutions are not true self custodials. The reason is that they will always have own software dependency or owner dependency. So for an example, if you use Liminal's MPC solution, then you are dependent on Liminal MPC software to work with it. Your keys with Liminal MPC are not compatible with, let's say, Coinbase MPC or some other solutions MPC. So generally, MPCs are semi-custodial, where uh, without your shard or without your signature, the transaction cannot happen. But that's also other way around. Without using that particular vendor's software, you will not be able to actually sign the transaction as well. So generally, MPC should be preferred on certain use cases, such as, like, for an example, this is for enterprise like exchanges which manages the hot wallets. They should use MPC. MPC is a new age tech. It is much more efficient. It has a lot of fees benefit, transaction benefit. So MPC should be used there. Having said that, if you are a normal retail user, and if you have a significant amount, or even if you are an institutional user and if you have a very significant amount, then personally I would still prefer something like multisig, because the security guarantees are coming from protocol rather than software, and you do not have a vendor lock-in in case of multisig and MPC. Hope that answers your question, Sumit.
I hope so. And we will be taking up few questions from our viewers as well towards the end of this session. Um, so I think we have covered, I think, largely about how individuals can, access self custody. But on an enterprise level, how can one start using self custody?
I will have Dhruvil take it up.
Sure. So of course, so like we talked at enterprise level, so there are basically two options. Of course, the first option is the enterprise has a blockchain department, so they can build everything on their own. They can have blockchain engineers who can help them build this entire wallet setup. Uh, but this requires a lot of effort. So like I've been doing this from the last so many years, and it's a lot of effort, and it requires a lot of expertise there, and the key management and security. And it is true not only for the Web3 world, it is true for the Web2 world also. You should not invent your own security measures. Try to use something that someone has already built, and that has been already going on for several years. So one option is, of course, you can build everything on your own. But of course, so this has been a concept that has been, I think, that will catch on. Something that is called an assisted self-custody, where, of course, the institution or even the individual still have access to their funds and they still do custody. But a third player comes in that will help them with the technology, with keeping them updated, with what are the new things that are happening in the chain. So even if you understand, even if you build their wallets, or even if you have onboarded on the wallets, the blockchain world, it's like it keeps on changing like every other day.
Right.
So you just not have to build it. You'll have to like keep on updating what you've already built and keep on adding those efforts. So it's a full-time job basically. So generally, it's big companies like Liminal or some other third-party self-custody company would generally come in and onboard. Like Mahin said, generally that they would have like different temperatures of wallets. It's not just that if you're a big institution, you just have to use multi-sig, or you just have to use Trezor or Ledger. So every institution will have needs for different temperature of wallets. So generally, they would have a multi-sig wallet. This multi-sig wallet would hold the majority of the funds. These are, of course, backed by HSM devices. Here, a lot of jurisdiction play would also come in. So some countries might require that these keys have to reside into a certain region. So we have to make sure that all of these compliances are, of course, also met. They would also need some different temperatures of wallet. Like they also need a single sig Trezor. They might also need some hot wallets, right? Because of course you won't store a lot of funds there, but institution would require access to different types and different temperatures of wallets. So they would basically spread across of all of the kind of the wallets that we generally have talked about. Institution would need something called a BCP on top of that. So we have seen in the past that like even an institution CEO should not have access to like all of the funds of the company, right? So we don't want things like we saw exchange in past in Australia where the CEO basically came and died, and basically all of the customer funds were basically gone. Nobody knew where the funds went. So a BCP protocol also has to be enforced, and there's a new standard called CCSS, that has gaining traction and being adopted. So basically, if you follow the standard, all of the basic checks, and from the starting to an advanced level of checks, basically there are levels to it. So you can be at level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 3 is like the pinnacle. So if you are following level 3, basically they certify that you are following the best practices. Even if something happens to like one of your keys, you will be able to recover your wallets, and there's nothing about you can do about this. So these are some certifications that everyone institution can follow. And of course, there are services like Liminal that can help them onboard and help them with the journey.
So I hope that your questions were covered in what Dhruvel had already mentioned. Um, to this, I think while we were talking about multiple things, I I'll just take a few minutes of yours to just tell our users about the basic difference and why should one opt for either a multisig or an NPC, because sometimes people do get confused between the two because of so many things floating around. So probably you can throw some light on this.
I'll take this up. If you are a retail user, then you really do not need to think about what you should choose in terms of MPC or multisig. Okay, so even if you are using MPC, let's say for an example, the new Coinbase wallet comes with MPC setup, while the Blockstream Bitcoin wallet comes with a multisig setup. You don't need to understand multisig or MPC. You just need to follow their key generation and recovery process as they have said. What you need to do is you go and set up your wallet. Okay, store keys and everything as they have suggested. Do not transfer a lot of funds there. Assume that this wallet is now deleted. Okay, you delete that app, you delete all the keys and try to recover it again. Can you recover it again securely? Normally what we have done here is in Liminal, every wallet that you create, at that time we actually from our personal funds we send some amounts to that particular wallet before user can actually use that wallet. We call it internally sanity testing, and we ask users to actually spend funds from that particular wallet. What that shows is basically that wallet is set up correctly, the users have used the keys correctly, and users are able to spend funds. Always remember one thing: in blockchain, when you create a wallet, that means nothing. Okay, when you are able to spend from that wallet, that means that you have actually a control over those funds. Okay, so if you are a retail user, then MPC or multisig doesn't make any difference. But if you are an enterprise user, or if you are a business where you are running lots of transactions or doing custody for your users, or you have a sizable amount, at that time the simple thumb rule, according to me, is if they are high frequency, low value transaction, MPC is very good tech. If they are high value, low frequency transaction, then multisig is very good. But remember, multisig is not available on all the chains. Sometimes you will have to kind of work with smart contracts and something else. But in general, this is the thumb rule that works. Just for our users, what is the difference between MPC and multisig? So we all understand that blockchain works with keys, private keys, public keys, and so on, and then you create a wallet. If you want to make sure that your wallet is fault tolerant and more than one person is required to spend a transaction or do transaction, then that wallet needs to be set up differently. Okay, so this there are two ways to set up this fault tolerance. One is multi-signature and one is MPC. Again, if you are a retail user, then really you do not need to get into this. In fact, this is job of companies like Liminal to make sure that we remove these complexities from the user interface, and we improve on user interface and user adoption so that users don't have to take these decisions. It's very simple. If you Until and unless you make a particular technology idiot proof, you are selling technology and you are not selling value. And one of the key principles when we established Liminal was that we want to make blockchain and wallets idiot proof so that there is a user adoption, and we are not selling technology, but we are selling value.
Right. On that note, I would like to share our last question for the session. So, Mahin, how robust is Liminal's tech infrastructure to support self custody?
I started into this crypto ecosystem into 2011. Okay. At that time, if you want to do anything with Bitcoin, you have to install a desktop software in your computer. Okay. And then it used to create a file named wallet.date. Okay. Which you have to take backup into your pen drive or something. There's no physical backup. It's not possible. Okay. So you have to copy that particular file. And every time you do a transaction, you have to again take a backup of that particular file. Okay. That's in 2011. The the total value of that ecosystem in 2011 was less than $1 billion. Okay, the attack surface and the people who wanted to attack you for that particular value was very small. Okay, the
Yes.
number of people were hardly in India. There were like hardly 100 people who were talking about Bitcoin at that time. In the world, it might be less than 1 lakh. Now go back to 2022. Okay, the crypto ecosystem doesn't have only Bitcoin. The crypto
Right.
ecosystem have multiple chains. Okay, doing different stuff. Now we may agree or disagree on particular chains, particular tokens, or whatever, but we are talking about technology here. Okay, the complexity of managing those different, now the keys are different, the way keys are used different, the transactions are different, the whole way the transactions work in Ripple, the transactions work very differently compared to Bitcoin, compared to Ethereum. And then Cosmos comes in, it works very differently, then Solana comes in very differently. The keys are very different, the transactions are very different, and the ecosystem you access with those keys and transactions is very different. So
Right.
the whole user experience is very complex. The second part, which is more important, this ecosystem is now $1 trillion. Okay, which means that there is a larger value at stake. It also means that the predators are much more sophisticated than what you can even imagine. So Bitcoin and crypto assets are bearer instruments, which means that if you have it in your hand, then you control it. But if it is transferred to someone else's hand, maybe hacker, then they control it. There is really no way you can get it back, correct? Until unless they transfer you. Okay. So the attack surface is much higher now. The attackers are much more sophisticated. The attack is much more sophisticated. So if you have a significant amount of assets, then you should also understand that you want to use tools and techniques which are also more sophisticated to create the user experience to use all the chains or all the tokens or the protocols in a correct way. And second is that to protect yourself from making certain mistakes and protect yourself against bad actors. When I started, we managed billions of dollars of assets when we were running Zeppay. And by God's grace, because I always believe that getting hacked is not about if, it is about when. So you will
Right.
always get hacked. Your job is to make sure that you keep improving your security practices, so you keep pushing that incident or timeline in the future. So one thing that we realized is there are three fundamental things which is important when you are building a custody infrastructure. Dhruvil was with me when we were building Zepp's infrastructure as well. First thing is that if you make it inconvenient on your keys and your transactions, then people will start creating security lapses to make it convenient. So you cannot have inconvenient system and you can expect that it will be secure. The second thing is that until and unless you make it zero trust system, there is
Hmm.
really no way you will be able to build a system which works. For an example, in case of crypto assets, once a private key is exposed or leaked, it does not mean that your funds at that time are at risk. Anytime in the future, if funds come on that particular address or on that particular key, then still they are at risk. And the third is the crypto ecosystem moves very fast. So you want to make sure that you incorporate all the technology or the innovation at an infrastructure level, and you try to automate as much as possible. So with these three building principles, Dhruvil and his team has built the whole liminal infrastructure. We try to make sure that there is a zero trust involved. I don't need to trust Dhruvil here, or Dhruvil does not need to trust me, and we don't need to even sometimes trust our users to make sure that they don't make the mistake. We have made the user experience and developer experience much better, so that they don't have to take a lot of decisions in terms of keys management, transaction management, and so on. And we have built in a lot of automation for our business users, so that they don't have to do a lot of manual operations, because when you do manual, you are reducing your security, and you are also inserting uh, manual risk in terms of something happens wrong, you have entered a wrong amount, you have done something wrong, calculated wrong fees, and so on. So we have spent a lot of time in thinking through the design principles of how a digital custody should look like in on the first principle basis. And again, it is not only job of Liminal, it is job of every infrastructure player in this ecosystem to stop selling technology and selling value. Because even today people are selling multisig and MPC and keys and hardware wallets and so on. What we need here is we need to first make self custody as easy as possible for businesses and retail, and then we want to make it as idiot proof as possible or as interoperable as possible, so that users will always have a convenience and control over their funds.
Right. On that note, just taking a small minute and would you please throw some light on the compliance side that we offer at our platform?
Sure. So again, see, sometimes people think that cryptos are for criminals and something. This is a very wrong way to look at things. Again, it's a technology. Okay, the way you use technology determines what is the use case or what is the value coming out of it. Think on those lines, that if a technology is powerful, if a new powerful technology is invented, you will always get criminals involved there, because they require edge. Okay, so if a new technology comes in, I remember this talk from Andreas Antonopoulos somewhere in 2015-16, where he explains that if a new technology comes in, be it cards or be it cars or something, the two type of people will be first involved, which is one, powerful people, and second is criminal, because they need the edge. Okay, so but this is a very wrong way to look at it. Crypto has now spent at least 11 years into the Lindy effect, and it has established as a $1 trillion industry now. So more legitimate players are coming into the picture, more legitimate use cases are coming into the picture, and that is why it is important for us. It is not always necessary that if you want to store your money with you, then you are criminal. You want to store your money because you want to have a better access to it, or you think that it is better protected that way. Having said that, privacy and self custody does not mean non compliance. We always pay our taxes. We always want to make sure that the bad actors are not involved into the main ecosystem. So with these fundamental principles, when we designed Liminal, we decided to build compliance in the infrastructure, which means that every transaction, even if we are self-custodial, every transaction that goes through our infrastructure is checked with AML analysis, and our user gets a report that this particular transaction is tainted or not. Now think on those lines. Okay, if you are if your money is on a bank, then whether bank will show you that this money that you have received is tainted or not. This is only possible into the crypto ecosystem, where now players like Liminal actually shows you whenever a transaction comes in or a transaction goes through, it shows you that the transaction is high risk or medium risk or low risk. Okay, second thing is there is something known as travel rule, which is FATF guideline, FATF recommended thing. We are incorporating again travel rule at an infrastructure level, so that all of our users will get travel rule information for all of their transactions. We all need to understand here that as the ecosystem grows and the adoption goes mainstream, we require checks and balances. The technology is innovative, but at the same time, you need consumer protection and you want to remove and reduce bad actors out of the ecosystem. So Bitcoin crypto ecosystem gives you choice. If you want to store it in your own way, in your own wallet, you have that choice. If you want to use compliant products like Liminal, you have choice. If you just want to trust, say, a centralized custodian or a regulated custodian, you have choice. If you don't, if you want to just store somewhere, we are non-regulated, non-compliant, centralized custodian where you don't have any recourse, you still have the choice. So again, with more power comes more responsibility. Yeah. So it's absolutely up to the users. They have all the gamut of choices with them.
Right, I think that's the beauty that crypto as an industry, or I would say DeFi as an industry, has its offer. It's the transparency, the beauty of transparency that it offers. On that note, taking up our last question from our viewers, Anish has asked, like, given the recent shakeup in the whole crypto space in terms of value erosion, what role can a responsible player such as Liminal play in reassuring investors to stay invested?
So the first thing is that investment is a different thing. When we come into the picture, you have already made a decision to be part of this ecosystem. So uh, we don't advise you that you should invest or you should not invest. We are not financial advisors, but once you have made a choice to be part of this ecosystem, then players like Liminal comes into the picture. Now coming to the question, very important question. First thing, you if you want to, let's say, go to stock market, or if you want to, let's say, for an example, put a money into an FD, okay, or open a bank account, what you would do, you would go and research something. Let's say if it is your hard and 1 lakh rupees, you will not put it into any cheat fund, correct? And you will not put it into any bank you have never heard about it, or you haven't even seen the branch or the people, or you don't know whether they are regulated or not, correct? Okay, same way in stock exchange. If you want to invest your money, then you would do some research about that particular stock or script or something, correct? So the first thing, the buck stops at user, because user has the most power here. If you have put your money into a player which is non-regulated, which is offshore, then really it's according to me, it's literally gambling. What I suggest here is that you always look, and you don't need to trust, actually. You don't need to trust Liminal. Okay. When Liminal makes this claim that this is a self-custody solution, and if you come on a demo, or if you're onboarding your family office, your organization on Liminal, you should ask this question, that how can Liminal prove that it is actually self-custody? How can we make sure that we access our funds even without Liminal? Okay. Same things. You do not buy anyone's any claim. Okay. You ask them question. If you are satisfied with the proof that they are giving, then yes, go ahead. With regards to other option where you are going with a regulated and custodial players, again, in India there are no regulated custodial players, but still you can look at the reputation, you can look at the players who are available and available inside the jurisdiction. But again, these are like very small things. If you have access to a regulated and compliant player, you can go and custody with them. With regards to the players like Liminal, what we need to do, one thing that we absolutely need to do is we need to make this infrastructure as simple as possible for users. I'm 100% sure that in this 1 hour, the type of terms that Dhruvil has used or I have used, a lot of people would not even understand 70% of these things. And that is very important thing. Think on those lines, that when internet came in, okay, what we have to do is, when internet came in, at that time very few people used to go to a cyber cafe and then they used to access something known as IRC or Yahoo or something. They need to know what is Yahoo. They need to know the how they can kind of navigate to the website. They need to go through all this learning curve and so on. But now the infrastructure is so seamless. Even my mom and dad can access various apps or internet directly from their mobile. But it took 20 years. I believe that crypto will not take 20 years to make the user experience much, much better. Our job is to make sure that the user education and simplification of the experience is most important. And we don't have to kind of say about things. We have to invest money in building such products with experiences and invest money into user education and awareness so that this task or these goals are achieved, and these are not just something which someone says on webinars or something. It's just good things to say.
Well, yeah, of course. On that note, I think I we have just covered most of the questions from our listeners as well, because I think during the conversation itself we covered a lot. So, on that note, thank you so much, Dhruvil.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Akanksha, I just want to cover one question from David Rowden. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. That jurisdiction and regional regulations are equally important. Very rightly said that if you are a business, then you have lot. Let's say, for an example, if you are in Japan, or if you are in South Korea, or if you are in Singapore, or if you are in Abu Dhabi, then there are set of rules that you need to adhere to. So it is very, very important if you are a business, and if you are doing a business related to crypto, or if you are having exposure to crypto ecosystem, then it is very important to understand the jurisdiction and regional regulations. What are your obligations? What are your rights? How you should go about it. Most of the time, these regulations do not impact or do not affect to retail, except the tax obligation. But tax obligations are in general very straightforward. If you have an asset, declare it. If you are making profit, declare it and pay your taxes. You may agree or disagree with the taxation methods or taxation amount, but this is your obligation as citizen of that particular nation. So please follow your regulatory obligations from your jurisdiction.
Absolutely. So this, I think, also the first step towards regularizing, our crypto space. And if you want to know more or listen to this conversation regarding the regulations or anything else, please do hit up in our comment section and let us know uh, for our next the next topic for our AMA. We'd be glad to have our new panel on here and talk about this. On that note, thank you so much, Mahin and Dhruvil, for spending some time with us to talk about these topic and to share so much knowledge with our viewers, as well as covering all their queries as well. Thank you so much.
Thank
Any parting thoughts that you want to share?
Uh, Thanks, Akanksha. Thanks for having us. Thanks, Anish, David, Sumit, Anish for sharing your questions and making this more interactive. And all people who are listening us, and maybe you haven't sent comment, but you are listening us. Please feel free to ask us your questions in comments. Again, repeating here, I truly believe that this is a tech. While there are setbacks into any industry, well, while there are issues, there are teething times with regulators, adoption, and maybe scams are involved certain times. But I personally believe that I have given 10 plus years of my life to this ecosystem, and I genuinely believe that this is one of the groundbreaking innovations that we have seen as human species. And just a parting thought, not your keys, not your coins. If you are believing in this ecosystem, then you should spend some time on learning it. People who have learned internet, or how to use it, or how to effectively use it for their benefit in terms of professionally and personally, in early 2000s or late 2000s, have benefited from internet immensely. I genuinely believe that blockchain and crypto ecosystem has the same power. Uh, Even if you are not invested into it, please spend some time learning about it. And I am 100% confident. I might be wrong, but in next decade, this exposure or this learning will help you more than anything else.
Dhruval, any parting thoughts from you?
I think Mahin rightly put it. So just thank everyone for joining on this call, and yeah, this was very fun.
Glad. I think our viewers must have enjoyed it as much as we did. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great week ahead and happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.